You have to have heard of this case because it was all over the news, but whether you have or you haven't, it is still just as shocking every single time. She was left to melt on her parents' couch. Her body and the couch pretty much became one because she had stayed in that very spot for 12 years. How do you treat a human being like that, let alone your own daughter? Sheila and Clay Fletcher lived in the small town of Slaughter, Louisiana, which I do wonder who was in charge of naming that town, because someone at some point said, how about Slaughter? And people said, yeah, that's a great name. Anyway, not the point. Sheila and Clay were very much involved in that town. As far as I could tell, they were well-respected, liked people. They had plenty of friends. They went to church every week. Sheila even worked for the town's council. She was the town's vice mayor, and she was elected for that position because people knew her, people liked her, and people thought that she was the kind of person who could be trusted making decisions for the citizens of that town. When they were in their 20s, the couple fell pregnant and they gave birth to their daughter, Lacey Fletcher. I sound like a broken record, but again, in this case, from the outside looking in, the family seemed perfect. Lacey attended private school. She was involved in sports teams. She made good friends who described her as a very sweet, caring girl. Lacey loved Disney. She loved volleyball. She loved to have sleepovers with her friends. She was just a girl. In high school, Lacey's social life began to change. She grew to become very anxious, especially when it came to social interactions. She was diagnosed with autism, and that did affect her. She also experienced a lot of bullying in high school, and I think that it was a mix of those things that led her parents to decide to pull her out of school. Now Lacey would be homeschooled, and that did have a big impact on her day to day, because now Lacey did not have a reason to leave the house, and because she was struggling so bad with social anxiety, she didn't want to. Lacey was 16 years old when she saw a doctor for the very last time in her entire life. Her parents took her to the doctor and informed them of the things that Lacey was struggling with, but nothing was ever done about it, and Lacey would never see the doctor again. And 5 years later, when she was 21, Lacey Fletcher would never be seen by anyone ever again. At 21 years old, she stopped leaving her house, and she would remain inside of her parents' house for the remainder of her life. And you may think, oh, that's pretty strange. The Fletchers were probably strange people, but that was not the case, because her parents were completely normal. They would go to work, they would go to the store, they would go to church, they would socialize, and they were very active on social media, especially the mom. She would post pictures of them going on vacations. They would go on vacations, but Lacey was never there, and Lacey would never be in any of the pictures that her mom posted. Lacey would never be seen in public ever by anyone, but nothing changed for the parents. And when they were asked about their daughter, the parents would just say, oh yeah, she's doing well, and they would immediately change the topic. But Lacey Fletcher was not doing well. Lacey Fletcher was inside that family home, sitting on their living room couch, not moving. If you ask the parents, they would say that that was Lacey's choice, but I find that personally very hard to believe. Lacey didn't move to shower, she didn't move to eat, she didn't go to the bathroom, she did not move at all. Everything that she did on that couch, and yes, that does include relieving herself. She would do so on the couch, and nobody would clean it up, so you can imagine the condition of that couch and the smells that that living room had. That would only get progressively worse. Human feces on that couch all over Lacey. She began getting sores, open wounds, and rashes on her body because she had not moved in years. Absolutely nothing in regards to her hygiene was ever done or ever attended to. She was in a very, very bad state. In 2010, when Lacey was 24 years old, her parents went to the doctors and they confided to the doctor about Lacey's condition, about how she had been sitting on the couch, not moving, refusing to move because she was too anxious. And the doctor said to Lacey's parents that that was very alarming, because that is no way to live, because staying in one spot your entire life is detrimental. And they advised Lacey's parents to take her to the hospital immediately, but her parents didn't. They just didn't do anything. They left her on the couch, they neglected her, and they did absolutely nothing. By the way, the rest of the house was well kept. In this picture right here with the Christmas tree up and decorated, this picture was taken in the same living room that Lacey Fletcher was in. She was just steps away, rotting on the couch, and look at the smiles on the parents' faces. It is just unbelievable. It really is. This would go on for the next 12 years until Lacey Fletcher was 36 years old. By January 3rd of 2022, Lacey Fletcher had not been seen by anyone in 15 years. At 2 a.m., 911 received a call from Sheila Fletcher. She said, quote, "My emergency is my daughter stopped breathing. It's a long story. She has stopped eating. She's an adult. She wouldn't eat." The operator tells Sheila, and also Clay, because Clay is in the room, to get Lacey on the floor and start giving her CPR, but the parents say that they just can't. Emergency services arrived at their door, and as soon as they stepped foot in the house and saw the state of Lacey Fletcher, they called a coroner. The coroner, his job, his profession is to deal with deceased people. They are surrounded by death every day, but the smell of death inside the Fletcher's living room was the worst that they had ever smelled or ever seen, and I am going to describe how Lacey Fletcher was found. If you have a queasy stomach, I would skip ahead. Lacey's body on that couch weighed 96 pounds. She was 36 years old. It was determined that she had been there lifeless for at least 1 or 2 days before that 911 call was made. Her entire body, hair, and underneath her fingernails was covered with human feces and bodily fluids. Her skin was, of course, in terrible condition. She had open sores and wounds all over her body. Not only that, but she had visible infections to her bones. Her bones were exposed because her skin had quite literally melted away. Her skin was practically melting onto that couch, and because she had fluids coming out of her body, the fluids would dry to the couch, making Lacey and the couch basically become one. She had couch fibers embedded on her bones. There was a massive hole on the couch from it rotting away, and her tiny little body was inside of that hole. There are pictures of this online, but if you look it up, it's horrible. You're not going to be able to get it out of your head, so fair warning. I'm not going to include pictures of the couch because I can't. Inside of Lacey's stomach, there were signs that she must have attempted to save herself from passing away from starvation. She was eating the only things that were around her, and those things were only human feces and couch cushioning. So the only two things found inside of her stomach was that feces and couch cushioning. There were maggots, bugs living in her hair, on her skin, and inside of her. I could go on and on about the state of her, but it is hard to talk about, and I think that paints a picture for you of what authorities walked into when they entered that house. At 3:07 a.m., Lacey Fletcher was officially pronounced no longer alive, and her death was ruled a homicide. Her parents were immediately arrested and charged with second-degree murder of their daughter. However, they were released on bail. A couple weeks later, they came in for questioning, and Sheila and Clay basically blamed everything on Lacey. They said that she didn't want to move. She refused to move. It was her choice to stay on the couch, and because she was an adult, they just let her be where she wanted to be, and that was on that couch. They said they couldn't really do much else. Sheila, her mom, actually claimed that she did take care of her. She said that she slept on that couch with her. Really, Sheila? I really don't understand how Sheila could think that the things that she was saying would be believed by anyone, because she said that prior to the day that Lacey passed, Sheila said that she was fine, that she was well, she was eating, she was speaking, until, I guess, according to her, she was found deceased and brought it on that couch, but she said that prior to that, she was absolutely fine. On February 6th of 2024, Sheila and Clay took a plea deal that reduced their charge to manslaughter, and they pleaded no contest. On March 20th of 2024, they were sentenced to 40 years, but with 20 years suspended, meaning they technically only have to serve 20 years, and they could be released from prison in their 80s, which is shocking. Again, I've heard of this case before, but looking into it, no matter how many times I listen to it, I'm just as baffled every time. Let me know if you have heard of this case, what your thoughts are on it. I just cannot believe it. But thank you guys for spending time with me today. Also, a lot of people leave requests for cases that they want to see in my comment section. I will say that I do check my Instagram messages more than I do my TikTok messages. So if you do want to request a case, it is more likely that I will see your request if you message me on Instagram versus TikTok. Anyway, I hope you guys are all having the best day. If not, go do something to make it the best day, make somebody happy. I will see you in my next video. Massive kiss on the forehead to every single one of you.